We call it death by 1,000 cuts. A lot of agencies don't even think twice about, or don't think at all about sending an officer or even offering up any type of critical incident stress management services, because it's what we do every day. But those are the kind of things that weigh on police officers. Drugs, gun, that's an adrenaline rush and it's over, okay? Mm-hmm. But seeing people, who are like our families and members of our community subjected to some of those horrible things, those are the things that we can't turn off every day when we go home. And right. Those are the things that really start stacking up in that cumulative stress. Mm-hmm. But what most of us don't realize is that while we're trying so hard not to talk about that horrible thing, we're also talking less about the simple things. And before we know it, we've kind of checked out.
Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Welcome to The Roll Call. I'm John Glahn. I have with me Harold Love, retired Michigan State police captain, turned into licensed mental health professional, and has a firm that's Harold J. Love and Associates, right, that is now serving the community that he was a part of for so long. We just met last week, and hearing your story, I thought, we've got to get your story out there. So, yeah, all are here and accounted for. Let's start the roll call.
All right.
So, Harold, thanks for joining. I love entrepreneurism in all of its forms and all of its when it starts, when it stops. Right? Some people start early, some people start late. Let's hear your story of how you are sitting in this chair today.
All right. So, well, like you already mentioned, I'm a retired captain with the Michigan State Police. I served 25 years and worked all over Southern and Lower Michigan in different capacities, from trooper to captain. And just working and going through the job, the normal things that our public servants go through, emergency responders. I had a few critical incidents early in my career, things that kind of really shook my foundation a bit. Things that we see all the time, but there were two in particular that really grabbed me. One was being the first responder to a fatal crash of a young man that was 19 that I just played ball with the night before and knew him since he was 13. And, I went back to work like we do in law enforcement or emergency services, and didn't talk much about it, just dealt with it on my own. And then about 6 months later, I had another significant critical incident where I was responding to a call, and a 10-year-old did what 10-year-olds do. He ran out of grandma's driveway, and I hit him with my patrol car. Fortunately, I was able to miss him with the front of the car, hit him with the side of the car, and broke both his legs. Had I hit him with the front of the car, I don't think he would have survived. But broke both his legs, and on the spot there at that scene, my post commander at that time asked me if I would consider going to see our departmental psychologist. And I said yes. And it was the best decision I ever made. I went, we had sessions where he helped me through it, helped me get on the other side of it, the effects of having gone through those things. But what we learned during that session after hitting the kid was that I was still dealing more with the incident that happened 6 months prior, responding to that fatal crash, because I just had that personal connection with the individual who died in that crash. So I became an advocate of mental health services after that. I always knew what to do when I experienced another critical incident or just experiencing other kind of stress that we're having in the job. So from there, I always encouraged others to also seek it. And then growing through the ranks, becoming a captain and mentoring younger troopers, other officers, other people in the community, I realized how underserved we are in this area. In other words, culturally relevant mental health services for public safety or law enforcement in particular. Yeah. So I decided I wanted to make an impact in this space. So 2.5 years before I retired, went back to grad school, got my grad degree in clinical mental health counseling, got licensed, got some extra training and certification in psychological testing and assessment, and also critical incident stress management. So I worked for about 2.5 years in private sector as a safety and security director for the Downtown Detroit Partnership. And while I did that, I did all my field clinical work. I did my 3,000 hours in 2 years in the field, and then got my first big contract with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office in 2016. I left my job at that time, went full-time into my practice, And today we're serving over 50 agencies or organizations providing psychological services for law enforcement, public safety, security, fire, EMS, et cetera.
Wow. I have to believe that. Actually, I should start with thank you for your service and in continuing that service as you have even retired, right?
Yeah.
Still serving the community in a different way. How the first incident,
hmm
did it ever cross your mind to talk to anyone after that?
No, it did not. It did not. There's a stigma in law enforcement surrounding mental health services that's very strong. You know, one of my colleagues once said the dirtiest four-letter word in a police officer's vocabulary is help, HELP,
Yeah.
because we're the helpers. We're the doers. We're the ones who are out there saving people, going after the bad guys and gals, coming to the rescue no matter what the situation is. So we don't ask for help. And the stigma is that if I ask for help, I'm going to be seen as less than capable
Mhm.
or unstable or crazy. You know, all those terms that people use. So rather than, risk that exposure, we quote, suck it up, at least we think we're sucking it up. But in the meantime, we don't realize how it's chipping away at our personal lives. It's affecting our relationships. It's affecting our overall wellness, our attitudes, our demeanor, our work performance. All those different things are being impacted by us choosing to keep those things in and, quote, suck it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I have in my business, generally, who really runs my business is an ex-military, and he uses it all the time. Suck it up and drive on.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the effects of trauma from that same thing, and we talk about it often. But right, and he's in his 60s now.
Yeah.
And really hasn't done much about that and carried that through his life, and and just understanding that effect that has on, certainly at work, but every relationship you have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, many of us do. And, I was speaking with another friend who was talking about, some of our older veterans, World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans, and things like that, and how, they talk about the things that they went through. They're strong, manly men, and all those things. And I said, I bet if you had a close friend and you sat down and really get him to open up and talk about those experiences that they're not boasting about, but telling those stories with pride and just,
Mm-hmm.
Recalling the things that they did and what they went through. But the pieces that we don't talk about, or that some of them don't talk about, are the small cuts,
Mm-hmm.
that those things cause in their lives. The small cuts again in those relationships, and just me feeling well every day and being well every day. My social interactions with people, all those things, and a lot of times we don't think about that. We just feel like we're sucking it up and we're motoring through life and don't realize the small impact, the many small impacts it's having in our lives.
That's where I was just going to go. Right, it's the cuts that they can't see.
Yeah.
Right. So at that time, were there resources available then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the resources, they've always been available. And in the state police, we have our own Office of Behavioral Sciences. So, readily available. But still, the utilization of those services is so small. I'm talking single-digit percentages in agencies, pretty much across the board. Unless you have a system, under the current leadership in whatever agency that is, that really promotes those things.
Culturally, right?
It's cultural. They've institutionalized it and made it okay. We don't see a lot of that, but there are some agencies that are very proactive about ensuring that people not only have the resources, but they're given the moral support, the administrative support from the leadership to partake in those services and seek help.
Yeah, and I would imagine it because of that, many, call it the testosterone or call it many other things that go into that, has to be someone has to be proactive about bringing it to someone else. Like, again, your captain or your superior who mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
What do you think it was that time you were willing to accept?
Well, I want you to, I'll paint the picture for you. I'm just going to a break-in call. And I'm running lights and no sirens because it's a break-in call. And I'm driving what we call a slick top, has lights in the grill, but not on the top. So, it's hard to see. And the kid runs out there. And I literally was about a week out of our new precision driving class that we had, the precision driving course. And so I just made a quick evasive maneuver. I didn't even know what ran in front of me. I knew something had ran out from behind the car that was on the other side of the road. And just a quick maneuver. I knew I hit it at that time, went off the road. I sheared the telephone pole off at the bottom, traveled about another 40 yards before I brought the car to a complete stop. So not only did I hit this kid, but I'm in a crazy ride, even after that. I get out, I run back to the kid. At the same time, I'm calling it in on the radio. I'm jumping over telephone poles and wires and things like that. And this kid's laying in the middle of the street. And I could see through his jeans that both his legs were broken because they were twisted pretty well, pretty good. And I held that kid until we put him in the back of the EMS and then let go. So from the time I kneeled down next to him, I never let him go. And we're talking. And he looks up at me and says, "Where are you going, man?" And so we talked, and he asked if his legs were broken. I said yes. And the kid never cried. At one time he just screamed like, "Ah," and then we just continued talking. So, when we are in critical incidents or, high intensity incidents, we just do what we do. We do what we know to do. We do what we train to do. And you're running on adrenaline and you're not thinking. It's just automatic. You're just doing it. But then once things settle down, okay, and that adrenaline, starts coming down a bit and now you're shaking, you're starting to breathe heavy, all those different things. And you start thinking, what just happened? What did I do? Is he going to be okay? Am I going to get sued? Am I going to get fired? All those things come to mind. So when my post commander came and asked me, I was kind of in a daze, and that's probably why he asked me. But immediately I knew that this was heavy, and so I just said yes, right on the spot. I didn't even hesitate. And fortunately, the doctor at that time who was in charge of it was very good at what he did, and he and I had already had somewhat of a rapport just from trainings and things like that. So it worked out well for me. It was, like I say, it was probably the best decision I ever made in my life,
Wow.
Especially at that time.
Yeah, and I got to imagine, those were two triggering incidents. And I'm sure there were many more, maybe not that same level, but maybe after that. How did that go? Differently, better, or is it ongoing? The engagement, was it ongoing with?
No, it was for a period. We probably had maybe 5 or 6 sessions, but you learn tools. You learn things that you should do and you shouldn't do. You learn that you should talk about it. But talk about it to someone who you have the confidence in to be able to share those things, and they don't ridicule you, or it's not going to go somewhere else, or they're not going to ask questions or make comments that make you want to choke them, meaning well, but they don't know.
How to do it. Right, they still know how.
There's no way for someone to understand what it's like to do the job of a police officer, paramedic, firefighter, day in and day out, 8 to 10 hours a day, or 12 hours for some, around the clock, year after year after year. And you can tell stories. You can try to explain, what you felt, what you experienced, what you went through. But it's like you have to be it to get it.
I was just sitting here, just holding back a tears of admiration, just trying to sit in that moment. Holy smokes. And thankfully, I haven't had a personal experience like that. And most people, thankfully, don't have to, but they do.
Yeah.
Far and few between. But generally those are coming from a different place. Like if I were to hit a child or something like that, there's a whole different, maybe it's not different. There's very similarities, but it's a part of your job when you're going to do those things.
Yeah.
And you're expected to just go back and do it again the next day.
Right? Yeah. And John, those are extreme critical incidents. what police officers and emergency services personnel, and I don't care what community you're working in, what we see on a daily basis is people, members of the community, being subjected to some of the worst things in society. So from abuse, from assaults, from accidental deaths, to domestic battery, things like that, all sorts of things that that some people don't even know people are going through out there. And we see it on a daily basis, and it doesn't matter. I was in Niles, Michigan when I first started. At that time, the population was 14,000. Okay, and both of those critical incidents were there. All right, so you don't have to be in a major metropolitan city to be exposed to these type of things that are basically killing you.
Yeah.
We call it death by 1,000 cuts.
Right.
Because those things that I just talked about. A lot of agencies don't even think twice about, or don't think at all about sending an officer or even offering up any type of critical incident stress management services, because it's what we do every day. But those are the kind of things that weigh on police officers. Drugs, gun, that's an adrenaline rush and it's over, okay? But seeing people, who are like our families and members of our community subjected to some of those horrible things, those are the things that we can't turn off every day when we go home. And those are the things that really start stacking up, and that cumulative stress just takes a toll on us.
And again, the effects are ripple effects too, beyond that, right? The families that you go home to.
Yeah.
And be the father, the husband, the whatever that you signed up to be, and mother, by the way. Sorry. It's not just
absolutely.
It's not just or the next person you come across or the next partner whatever it might be. Ripple effects are just endless, right?
Yeah, you're trying to process these things. You're trying to be okay, and you think you're being okay. And sometimes being okay means let me stay away from people and let me make sure I don't talk about this, because if I do, I might get emotional. But what most of us don't realize is that while we're trying so hard not to talk about that horrible thing, we're also talking less about the simple things, okay? About things that we talk about on a daily basis, because I'm afraid that we might get on this thing and I don't want to get emotional because I don't want anybody to think I'm not okay, okay? And we don't realize that's happening. And before we know it, we've kind of checked out, you know what I mean? In our relationships, or even how, like you said, how we interact with people, or maybe the next person on the street that's just made a mistake on a traffic stop. Okay, but I'm dealing with all this stuff that I can't get out, or that I'm choosing to try to keep in, and sometimes it gets unloaded on a person who was just driving distracted and made a bad move in front of a police officer.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go on the political side of any of this, but there's a lot of the things that show up in social media and the news about law enforcement and things that may go south.
Yeah,
and the only thing people think of is how bad or whatever, again, to that point, just a routine something, but you don't know how they showed up that day to be a part of that. And, sometimes you can't, it's hard to forgive someone if they're violent or something, but think about where they're coming from, right? They're just in that same survival mode that maybe that person on the other side of the street is on too, right? I mean, it's just... But we're not allowed to give you credit for that, or give you grace for that.
It is that is true. We have a responsibility to do what we need to do, to not be in that space where we're going to lose control over things like that. Yeah. I always say that a police officer is the only profession in our country that has the right and the authority to take a person's life on the spot. Okay, it's very spelled out. Okay, and the guidelines are very stiff and clear. Okay, now we see many times where those guidelines, were not met. But at any event, even a judge, in Michigan, we don't have the death penalty, but in states where they do, there has to be a jury, a conviction, and the death penalty has to be warranted. But as a police officer, if you do this, the law says I can take your life right now.
Yeah.
And that is a profession that, we're all susceptible to being in a situation like that any given day. Yeah. So that's a lot of power and responsibility. So we also have a responsibility to utilize the services that have been made available to us to ensure that we're okay, that we're not coming to work, with a fuse about, a half inch long, because we've got all this cumulative stress that we don't know what to do with. And we've chosen to try to just bear it all, and knowing that it is impacting our lives in different ways, but I'm still going to just, bear it and go to work, and, and hopefully I'll be okay.
So let's talk about the business that you're in, that you've now you're 10 years plus of launching, right?
Yep. Let's see, in my 13th year.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Of the contract was that, but so what are the mechanics? What exactly are you doing?
Okay.
So you said 50 different organizations that you're serving with. So you're not contracting with individuals per se. You're with the organization, and you become their behavioral department, essentially. Is that?
Yeah. So many agencies don't have their own internal behavioral health or sciences division, that sort of thing. So pre-employment psychological evaluations is what I started out doing. So agencies are required to ensure that their candidates are free of behavioral, emotional, and psychological instability. So we bring new candidates in who have been given a conditional offer of employment. They've been vetted, through interviews, through background investigations, through hiring panels and things like that. And then once they're given a conditional offer of employment, one of those conditions is that they have to pass a psychological evaluation. So my team performs those and renders a conclusion to the agency whether or not the candidate is free of behavioral, emotional, and psychological instability. So that's one piece. The other thing we do is fit for duty psychological evaluations. So when an employee is exhibiting behavior or actions that warrant questioning their ability to safely and effectively do their job because of some type of an emotional or psychological issue, that meets the criteria for sending a person in for a mandatory psychological fitness for duty psychological evaluation. Not simply because they had a critical incident, or not even because they shared with someone that I'm seeing a therapist, but they're exhibiting behavior that warrants everyone or someone who's watching this behavior question, are they okay? Because what they're doing is not characteristic of them, or it's just clearly dangerous to both them or even someone else.
Right.
So those fit for duty psychological evaluations. Then we do annual mental health and wellness consultations. I have a few agencies that we've started doing those with. We're on our third year with one agency, and it's been very effective in helping the personnel, the officers, dispatchers, firefighters, take an objective look at themselves and how they're being regarding their self-care. How am I taking care of myself? Am I willing to open and share, with someone that I trust when I'm not doing well, mentally, emotionally, and things like that? Are they engaging in those things that they love to do, hobbies, recreational activities? We always ask them about their hobbies and what are some of the things you love to do, that you're just not doing anymore. And people don't stop and think about that. But then, things like bowling or fishing or hunting or having dinner with my dad every other week, things like that. And it's like, man, I haven't done that in 5 years, and don't realize it's the stress and the impact of what they're experiencing on the jobs that's causing them to lose that desire. And because I lose my desire, I don't think about it anymore. I'm not being proactive with it. So we get them to, look at those things and make a commitment with themselves to start being intentional about engaging in fulfilling activities, recreational activities, relationships that have fallen by the wayside because, I don't want to talk to anybody about my job, that sort of thing. But those are things that used to be very important to you and were we call it touchstones in your life. And you're not touching those stones anymore, because of the stress and the anxiety and all that sort of thing. So that's what those mental health and wellness consultations are. Again, a self-assessment and then giving them encouragement and also tools that they can implement and start executing in their lives to just be better.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing two parts of it, the proactive part, right, of the screening beforehand, which again, hopefully would certainly get ahead of potential. And then this seems like some proactive organizations on this last description, which is let's not wait for something to happen. Let's
Yeah.
meet this at where we are today and hopefully improve it so that something doesn't happen.
Yes.
And then in the middle, it's something has happened.
Yeah.
In that, because I think I heard you say you're helping with the evaluation of. Is there then a counseling that could be a part of that if that's where it
could be?
goes?
So we do critical incident stress debriefing. So shootings, catastrophic incidents and things like that. We'll actually go out to the agency and perform what's called a group crisis intervention. This is something that's used internationally,
Sure.
Critical incident stress debriefings. And that's where we communalize the experience and help to normalize what people are going through and experiencing behind that incident. So, and then from there, if there are individuals that desire to have individual follow-up where we work with them and actually do therapy with them to help them get through whatever challenges they're having behind that incident. We'll do those as well. And then if it's an individual, let's say, who's been involved in a shooting and they have to be cleared to go back to work, we do those post-critical incident assessments as well. It's not a fit for duty. It's just let's make sure you're okay and you don't need more time off before you go back to work so that you're not put out there and having subpar for performance.
Right.
Yeah.
So, is your whole staff, the majority of your staff, are they licensed as well?
The majority are, they're all licensed. They're all licensed by the state of Michigan, clinical mental health counselors. And then the majority of them are also former law enforcement. So I have two former Detroit police sergeants. I have one former DEA agent and another former Detroit police officer who's coming on soon. Wow. And then we have one who is a former juvenile corrections officer. Yeah, and then we have others who are, don't have that experience, but, serve our other clients.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I have to imagine the reception of someone on the other side of the table. When certainly with you or with those that have had the experience of wearing that same badge, they know not just by schooling what they're going through, by I've been in that spot.
Yeah.
But I've also been trained on a few other things, right? So
yeah.
That's incredible. So and location wise, are you all Michigan or are you outside?
All Michigan. All of I and all of our clinicians are licensed in the state of Michigan. We have done some out of state organizations where maybe they're hiring someone who lives in Michigan and they'll send them to us, for a pre-employment psych eval. We're working on expanding. I had an opportunity to serve the Federal Reserve Police, but if I could not do Chicago office as well, then they could not allow me to do only the Detroit office. Needed someone who could serve both of those. So I couldn't get that, in place in time. But but yeah, we're looking to do those things. Right now, of course, we're based in Southfield, so Southeast Michigan. But we have, kind of here and there clients from all over the state that are looking for somebody to provide those services and don't have anybody local.
Awesome. I love hearing, and I want to make sure if there's anything else that we're leaving out about those services and how you're helping people, please, don't wait for my question.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, you talked about sitting across from somebody who's been there, and that's something we learned early in our, in our grad degree program. Cultural competence is really important, and I think it's important in any profession when it comes to providing someone a service. In order to effectively serve a community, I need to have a certain level of cultural competence, okay? And that competence comes from learning, learning and engaging with people and things like that, and learning what does it mean to effectively serve this community, okay, or this culture. And when I say culture, it's not always ethnicity or color or race. We've got affluent cultures. We've got, people who are lower on the socioeconomic scale as far as their income and things like that, and just their lifestyle. Those are all different cultures and have a different set of ideals and things like that when it comes to how they live their lives. So we have to educate ourselves and become more culturally competent. So with what we do, having served as, law enforcement officers and command officers and et cetera, we have that an in-depth level of cultural competence with the public safety culture. So we're able to effectively serve that community because we've been there, we've done that, and we understand what it's like. Not only the critical incident stuff, but the organizational stress that a lot of us deal with. Whether you have poor leadership or lack of leadership or no leadership in place.
Right.
People in leadership positions, but the leadership is not there. Or a lot of public scrutiny and things like that, we're living in those times. All those things cause stress as well. And I want to get up and go and do my job, the job that I love, the job that I went to school for and trained hard to become a part of. But I'm dealing with all this scrutiny, whether it be from, again, an organizational stress where there's poor leadership and things are just not done well, or it's because of the public scrutiny, because of things that some of our colleagues have done out there, or the perception that people have developed about us because of things that they've been exposed to, whether it was directly or indirectly, listen to someone else's account of it. But we're all subjected to that, to those perceptions that people have. And so when we do the individual therapy for police officers, some of them come on their own just because they're dealing with stress and things like that. And, I always tell them, you have a platform and an opportunity to change people's perception of law enforcement, one interaction at a time. Right. Okay? So you can let it cause you to form this us against them mentality, or you can decide, I'm going to use this platform to change how they think about us. All right? And that works. And I've counseled officers who've been in bad places because of where their thinking was, and just getting them to proactively engage with people and realize, man, people really do like us, and they are glad to talk to us and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, I'm sure, how you can de-escalate a situation just by how you're showing up.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
When it's us against them, then no one's backing down.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, this is a show about some entrepreneurship, so I want to hear about your journey. I know whether you care to share the rest of the part of the story that we were talking about last week, I recall, you building this up from scratch. And you'd made a comment about, hey, I think I'm finally paying myself, or something along those lines, right? So just that struggle from the business side of things.
Yeah. Well, I retired from a six-figure income. I went into private sector, working a job with a six-figure income while I was doing all my clinical work. But this was my dream. This is something that I decided I'm going to do. I'm going to make an impact in this space. So once I got my first contract, I couldn't do both anymore. So I had to step out on faith that, I'll eventually be able to pay myself what I was making on my last job. Now, fortunately, I retired with a captain's pension from Michigan State Police, so that helped. But, I'm still raising a family, kids and everything. So, yes, my first 6.5 years, it was just me. The revenue generated in the business continued to grow. But I want to say about 1.5 years ago, I finally wrote myself a check that equaled what I made on my last job. So it took, we're talking over 10 years for me to be able to do that. So it's been a grind. I was a person who, and I've learned this just from reading and mentoring, a person who owned a job. My business was still a job. I was everything in it, from the scheduler to the marketer to the technician actually doing the work to the biller, all those things that we don't realize are behind running a business and things like that. So got sort of burnt out, almost bailed. Actually applied for a administrative position with Oakland County. Fortunately, I didn't get that job because, I got over the burnout and realized, okay, there's a different way to do this. There's some things that I didn't know. And as I started learning those things and starting to implement some of those things, I'm still grinding, but I realized, okay, I need to put some systems and processes in place in order for me to be able to hire someone else to do those things that I just simply don't have the time or capacity to do. I did that prematurely and was paying a person, more than I should have, because it really didn't relieve me of those responsibilities, because I didn't have the system in place, and that person was not in a position to develop those systems either. So,
yes,
talk
about the normal, natural progression,
growing
of entrepreneurship, right?
Pains,
you can get all kinds of degrees and do other things, but like that, when you're in the grind doing it, you can't see. And sometimes you're so busy you can't see what's possible anyway because you're busy doing the work. And so That's the other reason I wanted you on, because I know you were just starting on a journey with the operating system EOS with Mike Gruley.
Yep, EOS.
And and obviously that's what I do similarly.
Okay.
But I want to hear, you're 6 months in ish on that part of the journey. So you've done all kinds of self-teaching, self-doing, skinning your knees, doing all those things to get up to this point.
Yeah.
And you said it earlier, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those, I love where you are right now, and you don't even know where you are yet, where you're going to get the real benefit of down the road going through this journey with Mike, is what probably 95, 98, 99% of small businesses out there don't have a clue that these things are an option.
Mm-hmm. Most
people just have to sweat equity. I got to go read a book, maybe listen to a podcast, then try to implement some things yourself. But talk to me about what made you like say, you know what, I need to do this.
Just grinding. I've been a hard worker all my life, even when I was a porter at Joe Panion Chevrolet back in 1983 and 84. I'd be the only guy sweating because I'm trying to get as many cars moved as I can.
Yeah.
So I've done that in my business, but grinding, but also on that hamster wheel, not really making any traction, and just getting to a place where it just wasn't sustainable, what I was doing. And help me, John. Ask your question again.
No, what got you to the point of like, hey, you know what? I want to go on this journey to get help.
Yeah.
For the operating system.
And that's what it was. Knew I was working hard, doing all I knew to do, making mistakes, but still not getting the traction. Hearing from everybody, oh man, you've done a great job. You've got a great business. Oh, that's such a niche and unique and things like that. But I don't feel like it because, again, it was only a couple of years ago that I began paying myself what I made on my last job.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was it. There's got to be a different way. And I have a good friend who is he's a doctor, but also has some other businesses. And he told me about EOS and how it just changed their lives, he and his family, because they learned the importance of putting operational systems in your business. And then the other thing is ensuring that you have the right people in the right seats. Okay, I shared that example earlier where I put somebody in that seat because of skills that they had, but they didn't have the skills that I didn't know they needed to have.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So that was a turning point for me. And when he told me about it, actually gave me the name and number to Mike Gruley.
Yeah.
I called him up. We had an informational meeting, which was, a lot of information. And it was just that, an informational meeting. And you make your decision from there. And it's okay with me either way. But all the things he talked about and shared with us, my team that I decided to bring to that meeting, were things that I was reading about in books that every business owner has read and recommends and things like that. So I really saw how implementing the EOS into my practice can make a difference and will make a difference for me when it comes to realizing my dream to scale my practice and grow it, but not kill myself doing it.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I say. I mean, you start to see benefit right away because you can see it. Like you said, you've read it in all these books, but I'm sure sitting in that meeting, sure as the owner, as the founder, right? I've been there. I remember my same meeting was with Gino Wickman 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just remember him saying things and you're just like, talk about 1,000 cuts. You're just like, yep, I feel that. Yep, I know that. Yep, I know that. And and then it seemed so clear. And, at the time, my business partner was actually a childhood friend of Gino's. And we didn't bring him in until 4 or 5 years into our business. I looked at my partner, I was like, dude, where's this been? Like this guy, we could have been doing this a long time ago. But we didn't know, we didn't know enough to do anything different other than just keep grinding. Right.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, I read Gino's book probably 10 years ago. Yeah. Because I was involved in something else. It was multi-level marketing where, man, the tools and the books that we get in those things are great. Yeah. But I read all those, the Good to Great and all those books that pretty much every business owner has read. Yeah. But I didn't apply them. I didn't know how to apply them.
It's hard to, you can't just
information dump and I didn't know where to start even.
Yeah.
But, all of this has been just very meticulously and strategically packaged in EOS
Yeah.
and the way it's rolled out and implemented by the implementer. It's you can digest it and actually start putting it into action.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, again, all of those, whether there's Pinnacle, there's Scaling Up, Bloom Growth, EOS, there's so many of them that just brilliant people have packaged those same things that we've read, like you said, 12 different ones. Like, and even in EOS, right, they cite all the books they've worked from. And Gina says, all I did was put it together. Like, it's someone else's ideas. I just put them together. And how many of us just continue to try to do it ourselves? And that same mentality is what keeps us where we are, because it's that I got to do it myself mentality versus bring someone in that can just help simplify all that, right? And it's a stair-stepped approach. And it's not like you're trying to take this huge elephant. You're just curated in a nice way to build things through. So I'm excited for what you have in store as you get along this journey. Because yes, it's hard at first because it is all more work. But then, right? It's all.
We start, learning about all the holes you have in your processes and all the mistakes you made, and so right now I'm in that cleanup stage, and I look at it, I became a great trooper by learning things that I didn't know. There are certain things I know and I brought into it, but there are things that I was taught, and when I put those things into action, I became better. So much that I retired as a captain. All right. Mental health clinician. I've been a helper all my life. People always came to me for advice and encouragement and things like that. But there are things that I learned, about psychology and, different modalities and theory and all those sorts of things that helped me to be a better encourager, and as a mental health therapist, a better, at helping people with their problems and things like that. So now as an entrepreneur, yes, I was a great clinician and I can sit and talk with people all day in my practice, but, that gets old. It's not sustainable if you want it to grow. So now I'm on this learning curve, this entrepreneurial learning curve, I call it. And so I'm learning things that I am going to implement, and they're going to help me get to become a great entrepreneur.
Yeah, and that's the great part that I love too, because the entrepreneurial word is thrown out a lot, which to me it is absolutely someone who's just willing to go take a risk to go start something. However, most of those efforts become what you said earlier. You're just working. You just have a job that you don't have a boss. Yeah. Right. And you get paid worse, and you stress higher, and all those kinds of things. Yeah. But really stepping into the entrepreneurial side of things is when you actually get to start dreaming about what's next in the business and have people around you to go do those things and have processes to make it smooth and simple. And then it doesn't seem like you can actually start fulfilling those dreams potentially. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I'm not taking that big fat briefcase home every night and bringing it back as full as it was when I took it home.
Right.
Thinking I'm going to work.
Work's getting done.
Yeah.
So how about for everyone else? You're 6 months in. Like, what do you think is the top or the most impactful thing in this journey so far, and from the EOS side? What do you think has been the fastest thing to help you guys take action?
I think learning that having a well-defined process for everything in your business, the simplest things, is very important, because that enables you to take your hands off it because you taught somebody else how to do this task using the process that you developed. Okay, but putting the time in and the input from your team, to develop those systems and processes. So, there are other areas that are much larger areas that we are developing and figuring out how to develop those. And with the help of Mike, we're able to do those. So that's the biggest thing, how important a systematic way of doing everything in your business is when it comes to growing it and scaling it.
Excellent. Right. It takes away a lot of the bumpiness and a lot of the stress, because then it doesn't pull you in every time. And again, and the journey for your clients becomes predictable too, right?
Yeah.
Then they're happier. They want to come back and, on down the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. I love it when people are doing good, but also start to think about a business, right? I mean, you always thought about your business, but I'm sure most of your focus has been on treating people.
Yes.
That's your heart. That's what your soul. That's the whole reason you started this.
Right.
But now when you can turn that and realize if you actually work on the business, you can affect so many more people.
Yeah.
So it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, and it frees me up to treat the number of people that I want without being stressed about it and that sort of thing, because I've got all the business things to worry about. So yeah.
That's excellent.
Absolutely.
Gosh, I'm so happy for you. I'm happy for your employees. I'm happy for, again, whether your family's felt it or not yet, they will, the effects of this because of your stress and all those other things. Your employees, their families, and then everyone that you treat. This all flows downhill because, again, the better you are at a business, the better you can serve your clients and the better benefit they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the better place that I can provide clinicians to come and work at.
Yeah.
Doing whatever they want to do. Serving people from all different demographics. Yes.
Yeah, and again, that keeps going further and further. So the better that you're helping these officers and these service providers, they're going to show up better for whomever that in the world that needs the help, which again could have a ripple effect one way or the other on how they show up, right? So that's that's a raising the tide of humanity, and through business. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So I do like to end with a mistake, a failure, a mishap, something that's along your entrepreneurial journey that you've learned from that maybe someone else could.
Being sure, do the research, and be as sure as you can before you make a decision. You have to make a decision, and sometimes it's wrong. But I made that decision to create a position, and I put a salary on that position that just did not. It wasn't. It wasn't a good decision, and because of that, I had to take it back. So it not only hurt the business, but it also kind of hurt that person and the plans that they had. But it's something I had to do. It was a bad decision to do it. Long term, not even long term, but even midterm. It would have hurt the business because this wasn't the return on the investment, or those key performance indicators that we talk about. Just weren't matching up. So
what do you think it was? What was the actual mistake?
The actual mistake was not having a specific process in place for that, and because of that, I was not able to determine whether or not this was the right person for that position. The right person in the right position, right seat on the bus.
Yeah. And a lot of times, certainly in the early stages of business, when we're creating a job description, or if we do, we're going off based on who we think can probably help us the most. And a lot of times, because at the small size business, it's very hard to have a defined role because it's all encompassing. You have to pick up a lot of pieces if someone's trying to help take stuff off your plate. Yeah. So what I find a lot of times is that mistake is maybe the wrong person. A lot of times maybe it's the wrong description of, or we don't know this is what we think we need. But then when you start peeling it back, like, geez, if we just fix a few of these processes, we wouldn't need to have someone do that. Or, so it's a multitude of, you think you know the right thing, and therefore it is the right thing until you learn more.
Until you learn more, yeah.
Well, awesome.
Sometimes it's hard lessons, but yeah.
Well, great. So, Harold, how can people help you get to more, to help more people, right? Is it connecting with local governments? Is it?
Connecting with local governments, referring, more public safety professionals to my team, because we're doing it from an insider's perspective, and that's what's missing out there, and what deters a lot of people from seeking help. But also just members of the community who are looking for, good therapists who are working in an environment that they can come into and feel that it's safe for them to talk about whatever they want to talk about. Just spread the word about Harold J. Love and Associates, and especially for law enforcement, but also members of the community as well.
So if everyone's hearing this, if you are in law enforcement or in service, firefighters, paramedics, maybe ex-military too. Yes. If you are one, be real with yourself, be honest, and we can look up Harold and his company. if you have a family member or a friend that's in the service, regardless of if you think they know it or need it, be brave enough to say something to them because they most likely have something under that thick shell.
Yeah. And it's one more thing. It's important for people to have an opportunity to understand what mental health services is and what it isn't. Many times we think medication, we think, we put the word psycho in there, psychotherapy, it's counseling.
Yeah.
Okay. And so basically we're helping people to problem solve. And the problems that they're having, are related to stress and anxiety and depression and things like that. But it's about solving those problems and giving them the tools and the knowledge to be able to fix those things or better cope with those things, better deal with those things. Can't fix everything, but we can equip people with better skills to handle those things and not have it have the negative impact on their lives that it's having.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So how do people connect with your company, with you? We'll put it in the notes.
Yep. So haroldjlove.com is our website. That's the easiest way. Our phone number is 248-599-7522. We're located in Southfield in the Crossroads building, which is right on Northland Drive. And those are the ways you can connect with us. Also, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. So.
Excellent. Well, everyone, please find Harold for those that need him. And if you would, like, subscribe, share this episode with folks. There are many people that I know need to hear this message. Harold, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
All right. And thanks, everyone. That's a wrap.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.